Hello, everybody, and welcome to Men with Issues. Right now, it's just Man with Issues because Justin is en route home or coming home from the church. He should be here any minute now. They actually had a Bible study that went long, and we were talking just before the show. And I'm like, man, if you're going to miss a show, you want to miss a show because of the long Bible study. That is the reason why you can miss a show and not have to worry about it. So, I had something that I've held on to for a long time here, something that I researched, and I figured this would be a good time to do it because he's not here yet. And it's really interesting to me. At the time when I was researching for what I'm about to read you, I was reading through the New Testament. I've since finished the New Testament. I read Revelations, and now I'm about two-thirds of the way through Genesis right now, which is a book of the Torah, as I've learned, which are the first five books of the Bible. It's the Jewish Torah and written by Moses. And I wanted to research about what was going on in Rome at the time when the Christians were being oppressed and when the movement had just started. And I'll turn on the comments here too, guys, so I can see what you're saying. Good evening, Craig. Tony says no video, but I think that's just you, Tony, because everybody else seems to, they're talking like there is a video. Steve, Jessica, I think I already said that. Jessica, Craig, Tony, Jessica again, and Steve. So I was researching for this just general curiosity about the time of what other people thought of Christians outside of the Bible. And then by extension, what did people think of Jesus Christ from outside the Bible? And there's very little information where you can get just specifically about Jesus by researching outside of the Bible. But I did find a couple things, and I'm going to read them to you because I thought they were very interesting. And one of them is a man named Tacitus, that's how I think it's said. And he lived from 56 to 120 AD. So this was around the time when Paul was traveling, when Peter was still alive, up until past the death of John. I would think, because Revelations, they speculate, was in almost 100 AD, somewhere right before 100 AD. So I thought it was really interesting that this guy came from this time period and had written a letter. He wrote it back to Rome, I guess. I'm not quite sure what the destination was, and welcome, Joe. Hello, Joe Shearer. Okay, so Tacitus wrote this letter, and here's what it says because it references Christ, which I thought was really interesting. It says, on Christ, and that's actually, I wrote that. It says on Christ. So, but all human efforts, all the lavish gifts of the emperor, and the propitiations of the gods did not banish the sinister belief, and this guy does not like Christians, so I throw that in there too. Sinister belief that the conflagration, fire, this is talking about the fire in Rome, was the result of an order. Consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero, who's the emperor at the time, fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations called Christians by the populace. Christus, from whom the name had its origin, Christ, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius, which was the emperor at the time that Christ was killed, is in the 30s AD, at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate, and a most mischievous superstition, thus checked for the moment, again broke out not only in Judea, the first source of the evil, which is referring to Christianity, but even in Rome, where all things hideous and shameful from every part of the world find their center and become popular, which I think that's very funny. Because like we would talk about like a big city like New York or Los Angeles, he's talking the same way about Rome. And I'll read it one more time. Said the first source of the evil, but even in Rome, where all things hideous and shameful from every part of the world find their center and become popular. Accordingly, the arrest was made of all who pled or pleaded guilty. Then upon their information, an immense multitude was convicted, not so much of the crime of firing the city as of hatred against mankind. So they were convicted for hatred of mankind, which is what they perceived as to hate the world. I thought that was very interesting. He hates Christians, which almost gives it more of a legitimacy for confirming the historical account of Jesus and the Christians. Because if the guy obviously someone who likes it, you might not trust their account if you're on the outside looking in, but someone who hates them, you would almost assuredly trust their account because why would they lie? So here's another one about the torture of Christians. It's from the same time period. And I want to say this is maybe it's Pliny the Younger. There's a Pliny the Younger and a Pliny the Older, and I don't remember which one this is. Mockery of every sort was added to their deaths. Talking about Christians. Covered with the skins of beasts, they were torn by dogs and perished, or were nailed to crosses, or were doomed to the flames and burnt to serve as a nightly illumination when daylight had expired. Nero offered his gardens for the spectacle. This is the emperor offering his land so they can kill Christians on it. Nero offered his gardens for the spectacle and was exhibiting a show in the circus, which I guess is what they called that particular area, where we might call the circus is like an event. Circus, I guess, was a place or a specific place. While he mingled with the people in the dress of a charioteer, someone who drives a chariot, or stood aloft on a car, a chariot car. It makes it sound like he's on a Subaru Impreza, but that's not exactly right. Hence, even for criminals who deserved extreme and exemplary punishment, there arose a feeling of compassion. So they were killing these guys and beating them in a way where the people were feeling sorry for them. For it was not, as it seemed, for the public good, but to glut one's man cruelty, for they were being destroyed. Wow. So Steve's asking me where I'm reading it from. I researched this a while back. The first one was a letter from a man named Tacitus. And the second one was, I want to say, Pliny the Younger. And I researched and found this stuff online. And I'm not quite sure because it's been a while, Steve, since I looked it up. So I'm not positive. Now read it, but change Nero to Potato Head. That's what Joe's saying. Well, that would be interesting. Change it to Potato Head. I really like that. And I would do that, actually, if we had more time. I'm just buying time for Justin. I told him that if he didn't show up within the first few minutes, I would actually take it and I would read books of Genesis word for word while just biding time for him to get here. Which is what I'll do. I have all this stuff written down for tonight, and I know we're going to get into some of the stuff he wants to talk about too. They had a Bible study, so I'm curious what they talked about. But what I've read here since the last time we've all been together, I've read the book of Revelations in the New Testament, which closed out the New Testament, and I've just gone back to the beginning and started to read Genesis. Now I am doing, or I will be doing, it actually already started, but I've yet to, start with it, I guess. We're going to do a study on the prophet Elijah. My wife has signed us up for this study, which should be very interesting. So we're going to read, I think it's First Kings, chapter 17 through 19. I'm not positive. I don't remember if that's actually, I think that's what it is. It's a study on Elijah and a famous pastor. I think she's famous. I'll call her famous because she's actually in the Overcomer movie, which is a Christian movie, and won the War Room. It's the lady that is the protagonist in War Room, but she's the school principal in Overcomer, I believe. She's a pastor, and Priscilla Shriver, I think is her name. Hopefully that's right. So we're doing a study on Elijah, which is something I'll be reading here for too awful long anyway. I'm about 2/3 of the way through Genesis. Very interesting. I have read Genesis before, so this is familiar. And plus, I actually found something which I want to show you guys. I'm going to show you on the other screen. It's a YouTube channel, which I found that I think is awesome. I really, really think it's cool. So I want to show you guys this particular YouTube channel. Let me share my screen real quick. For those of you listening as a podcast later, I'll kind of talk your way through it here. This is a channel called Bible Project. It has 2.5 million subscribers, and their videos are so awesome. I love them. I'll go to the playlists. It has, let's see, they have Genesis. I've been doing books of the Bible. They have overviews, which is really, really cool. And let's see if I can, I'm not going to play one because I don't know what the rules are with that, but I'm going to actually just like turn one on and freeze the screen. See if I can do that. He makes a lot of videos, or they do. It's a couple guys. So I don't know exactly where it's at. I watched Genesis. I watched all the way up through 2 Samuel, and it was really, really good. So here's an overview right here. It's just Old Testament. I'm going to turn off the sound, and you can sort of see he kind of goes through it, and it's really cool looking. And it has all these different explanations on what's going on, and it breaks down every book of the Bible like this, and it's really, really awesome. I got a lot out of it, and I actually watched them before I read Genesis, and it kind of helped me understand the stuff because these guys have PhDs, and their PhD helped break it down for me. Because, for example, if you read the New Testament and look who's here. Oh man, here he goes. All right, there he is.
I made it.
He's here. All right. Well, I was just breaking down this. I don't know if you saw it or not. It's this thing called the Bible Project. Let me put it back up there. That's wrong. Here we go. it's like a YouTube channel, and I'll go back here. It's really, really awesome. It breaks down some of these books. They have overviews. Like there's Matthew right here, and it's really cool because you see he breaks down all the different parts of the book, says what's going on, tells you a little bit of background that you might not know because he's like a PhD. It's really good, really, really good. So just a tech tip.
What is this? What channel is this?
It's called the Bible Project, and I'll click on there it is right there, guys. In fact, let me see if I can put it in the chat. I'll just go ahead and bring it over here. Magical technology. And there it is. Let's see if I can do that. Looks like I can. Okay, so there it is right there.
Cool.
All right. So, Beaver,
what's up?
You have us staying up late tonight, man. You know we're old people. Come on now.
I know. I'm going to crash halfway through this.
The first thing, whenever you said, let's move it to 9 instead of 8, I was thinking, am I going to be tired?
I thought the same thing.
It's all good. When you said, because you're going to, is the Bible study you went to, is that like a new thing for you now?
Yeah. So it's, the church does it on Sunday nights, and, it's kind of like trying to think of the best way to put it. Just a group of people trying to do better and be better disciples, and talk about how to build, other disciples, and, spread the gospel, in other words. And, where we feel like the church, may be failing to do that, and how we do better. So just a lot of good things.
Well, that's pretty cool. So is that like a weekly thing, you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very nice. So we're going to have to move the show to 9 o'clock forever?
No.
I don't think I can make it. Catch us on Saturday. No, I'm just kidding.
We went a little late tonight, but I don't think it'll be a regular thing. Be 9 o'clock's not going to be a regular thing. Zach, calm down.
Hey, it's okay. I mean, but we just have to stop at 9:30.
30-minute show instead of an hour.
You know how after the show we'll sit and talk for, it might be like 45 minutes to an hour that we're discussing stuff after the show.
Yeah.
Except from now, if we start at 9 o'clock, at the end of the show, I'm just going to hit the end button and leave.
Yeah, bye. We got nothing else to talk about.
I'm taking off. So what's new this week, man? I was kind of telling everybody that I finished Revelations, and I'm like 2/3 of the way through Genesis. So, What have you been up to?
So from the end all the way back to the beginning, eh?
Yeah, I went Omega to Alpha. You know what? It's weird because everything up to Revelations was similar, except for the book of Hebrews. That was different than everything else to me as far as the tone of it. But all the letters that Paul wrote, and then John wrote some letters, and there was Jude, and I read all those, and they have a lot of similarities. But when you get to Revelations, it's like you get it's like this. I'm not gonna say it's like a horror movie, because at the end it's good, but all the imagery, it's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
There's beasts flying out of holes. There's prophets getting eaten by beasts and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, it's very hard to comprehend a lot of it.
I watched a video on Revelation just to help me out, because I didn't realize some of it's metaphorical, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sitting there going, and I'm reading it, some of the stuff 2 times and 3 times, and I've got a general handle on it.
And a lot of it's how people are going to interpret it differently too. So.
Yeah. I could definitely see how that would happen, because it's just, there's some crazy stuff happening there. Angels with bowls, and they're dumping fire out on the earth. I was like, good grief, this is wild. But you know what? It gave me a good look at, we're living this way for a reason. We're following Christ for a reason. And it's sort of giving you the outcome of why, one of the reasons why you're doing that. This is where he's taking you. This is the new heaven. This is New Jerusalem that they're building. And it seems like a pretty cool place.
Yeah.
There's some wild stuff happened before that, but I mean, once you're there, you get to live with God, which is awesome.
Yeah. And what's the moral of the story? All the trials and tribulations that we go through now, the difficulty we have as a Christian, is irrelevant, because in the end, we win.
That's right. We do win. And what a wild and crazy ending it is. And and the guy knows, when I say guy, God knows this the whole time, how this is going to go. I mean, the plan's been, and I'm learning more about the whole timeline stuff, starting with, you go with Adam, then you have getting down to Abraham and the deal he made with Abraham. Then you're going to have Moses. All this is about, God wanted to live with his people, but the people kept falling short. So he couldn't live with them. I mean, you can't be
Hmm.
around these people that are breaking his laws. And let's just put it, they're dirty, dingy people. And he's
Right.
trying to get all the way back to where he can do that again. It's really interesting. Really
Yeah.
interesting. I just hope I understand it, all of it. That's this part. I pray that I understand what I'm reading.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
so
and
yeah.
I think a lot, like we've talked about before, I think a lot of it is you're not going to understand everything, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're like I've said before, you're not going to understand the infinite God in your little 6 pound brain or whatever it is. It's not intended for you to understand everything. Now, a lot you can. We've got the guide, we've got the Bible
Mm-hmm.
to lead us in the right direction, but you're not going to understand everything about God and why He does certain things, and that's where faith comes in.
Absolutely. And what kind of struck me is one of the things I kind of wrote down here before the show. I was sitting at my desk and I was writing down basically family issues. We're the men with issues, but just thinking about family issues, especially reading Genesis, man, those families had some problems. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
There was a lot of issues there. I just wrote down, of course, you got Cain and Abel right off the bat. Oh, one of them killed the other one, which I knew
Right.
that story. That wasn't a new one, but it's just Cain and Abel. Then you have Jacob and Esau, and you have then they kind of make Isaac's life tough, and it's wild because they're just like us. These main characters of the Bible are no different than you or I or the crap we do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, let's see.
Yeah.
Let's put it up on the screen because I see you reading over there, and I want to read it too.
Yeah. You caught that, huh?
I
I,
see
w- I, w- I was reading Craig's comment. I was. Absolutely, I was.
it says, I believe that both Revelation and Daniel are written not to figure out the details, but to trust that him even when the world falls apart. I think there's a lot of that. That
Hmm.
when things are going to, where in a handbasket, you still have to have faith. And it's easy to have faith when things are great, right?
Yep.
That's easy. God is great. I'm doing great. But when it's awful, I mean that's when it's really, really hard.
Yeah. And that was some of the stuff we talked about tonight was just you know uh, I guess being the way I interpret it and what I take from it is being willing to have the difficult conversation, right? It's easy to sit in a church and talk about God because you're in a room full of like-minded people, right? So you're open to talking about things like that. But what's really important, especially when you're trying to spread the message, is being willing to have that conversation with somebody that isn't a believer or lives a very simple life, and not be afraid to have that conversation. And you're not always going to have all the answers, um, but trust that God's in control, and hopefully that you'll be a light in that person's life to at least be intrigued to figure out why you're different, or why you live the way that you do. So even if you don't have all the answers, at least you are, you are the start of them wanting to know more. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I got you. And I don't know, something about what you're saying there made me think about Steve. And Steve said that he's going to participate with us. We haven't really ironed it out yet about getting Bibles out to people who need them,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to work on that. And we
Yeah.
haven't figured that out yet. But he said he's going to participate too. And I have some on the way. I have New
Cool.
Testament on the way, so
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll buy some Old Testament, and then we'll put them together.
Is it when you say like, is it a whole lot cheaper to just buy uh, just a New Testament versus the entire Bible, or what is the, I guess, what is the thought process behind that?
I had two thoughts here. One of them was it was pretty cheap for these. They were like $1.50 a piece, so they
Oh
were
wow.
really
Okay.
cheap to buy. And I bought like 25 of them because they're only $1.50 a piece. And the
Mm-hmm.
second thing was, I was thinking that maybe the best thing for someone to read right off the bat is Jesus, because it's like
Mm-hmm.
solid love. It's
Oh yeah,
love. It's the
I'm
it's
with
the
you
real
there. Yeah.
reason. So that's my idea. I think if you get into, like, if they read the Old Testament, they started like where I'm at now,
Mm-hmm.
it might not have the same effect as
Be
if they
very
read the
hard
New
for them to
Testament.
stay engaged.
Yeah, because the books are really long. There's a lot of stuff happening. There's a lot of names, which is very difficult to say. I'm not going to know. I'm not going to remember like 90% of them. I'm to read it again to figure it out. But the New
Hmm.
Testament, I think, is it's a lot easier to
Yeah.
digest. So we'll see. We'll see if that happens. And hopefully, we'll send out a book and someone will actually read it. It'll make a difference.
Yeah.
But that's where I
That's
was
cool.
at.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm game for that.
Did you get to hear the letter I wrote or not wrote? I didn't write the letter. It was 2,000 years ago. The letter I read from the Roman guy while you were trucking on the way home.
No.
I want to read it again. So I'm going to read it real quick. So bad. Here we go. This is from a guy who lived from 56 to 120 A.D. And I was looking at. You know what? Hey, let me read this a little bit later because I already read it on the show and it takes a while to read. So people are gonna be like, I ain't listening to more of this. He already read this letter. I'll read it at the end or something. But
Fair enough.
yeah, I'd rather talk about something else. I had all this stuff that I wrote down for like when I read Revelations and talking about Babylon. And here's something I want to talk to you about. You give me your opinion of this. They're talking about Babylon, which is ancient city, and at the
Mhm.
time when Revelation was happening, it would have been Rome was the big bad city,
Right.
and Babylon would have been long since gone. So Babylon goes all the way back to like the beginning of the Bible. So I guess that's what they're tying in the beginning with the end there. And I was thinking about the description of Babylon because you have these beasts, which evidently symbolizes like power and money and treasuring these other things instead of God's love and following God's way. And I was thinking about myself, now, is that the United States today? Do you think? Now, if you have someone who treasures money over God's love, who treasures all this other stuff, is a good reference to Babylon the United States? Or is that unfair?
I think in some cases you could say that. I think if you, in Revelations as a whole, there's a lot of things that you can take from that and realize that you're seeing it today.
Mhm.
And that's not just for our generation. I mean, I'm sure there's been events in the past 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago that you could say the same thing.
It's true.
But yeah, I think some of that you can tie into what we see today.
I should have opened the book while you were talking. I was listening because you're supposed to listen. I had it written down there because it was really really interesting because Babylon was this lady dressed in purple on a beast, and it's like it's like the imagery it takes what's actually happening. Like you look out and you see a city and you hear car horns and stuff like that, but it puts it into a context where you know what it symbolizes.
Hmm.
It's a prostitute, which I think she was a prostitute on top of a beast, and it's creepy because she has all these horns on her head and stuff. Revelation is scary. All right, I'm just gonna put it out there. Revelation is a scary book to read. But it's like it's like it's not The Shining is what I mean, but it's a scary book because of the imagery and stuff. And it's like, man, I want to make sure that God knows that I'm on His team. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure because you get done reading, it's like, what do I have to do to make sure? And I guess it's simple, but still, it's like I don't know
Hmm.
when the cop's behind you and you feel like I'm doing something wrong, even though you're not. That's the same feeling. So I want to make sure I'm doing
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Man, we
Yeah.
gotta.
And I think it gets back to, we're you're not going to understand everything there. And the important thing is having faith in him, and his ultimate wisdom. That way you don't understand it now, but it will all work itself out. You know what I mean? Like as long as you do what is in your control of having faith in him and being a disciple for him, the rest will work itself out. And so you I guess I don't look at Revelations as scary. You know what I mean? Like
I should rephrase that. Um, Intense. Maybe intense is better. Just
okay,
the way
yeah,
that it
yeah, I got
unfolds.
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to give the impression that I'm scared because I feel like I'm on the right track. But if you were to sit back and watch the stuff happening, like let's say it's not metaphorical in any way, but you actually saw this stuff the way it's
Hmm.
written, you'd be
Right.
like, "What is going on?" Like
Right.
what is Their guy just came out of a crack in the earth and ate 2 prophets and went back in the hole. So I'm gonna stay over here. There's a lot of stuff, man. It's
Yeah.
just wild, and it refers to this false prophet over and over again. I have no idea who that is. I assume that's like an antichrist figure, but I can't figure that one out. So
Right.
I'm trying my best here.
You know how long it's been since I read Revelation too? I mean, it's been a very long time.
I
Just to
tell
be
you what.
completely honest. So
Well, Steve said it. Steve said it's Las Vegas. It's Babylon. It's Las Vegas. I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of sin in. It's called Sin City, I guess, for a reason. And then Craig says Babylon is all mankind that is outside of God. It is man's kingdom without God, which I guess is the symbolism there, because
yeah.
obviously Babylon wasn't still around, but I guess it's a line he's drawn right there.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So
what you have going on this week? I feel like I ain't talked to you all week.
well, we texted a few times, and it's always busy here. Not even like with work, like doing the podcast stuff. It's always busy just with stuff happening. Everyone has doctor's appointments and stuff, so we have a lot of that. Little Jackson goes to speech twice a week, so we're driving him up to Clinton, which is about 40 minutes away from here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that stuff. I'm working on doing some stuff around the house. You know, I like to work with my hands still, even though I'm out of the field. Like I got to do something at the house to kind of supplement that I'm not
You still
doing
have
stuff
an
in field.
still have an itch to do something, to be active with your hands.
Yeah, I guess it's just a part of me that's never going to go away until I become incapable of doing it. So I'm working on building a bookcase.
I mean, you could always just advertise again and go back to running service calls.
We don't have to get rash now. I'm just going to build bookcases. Now I'm building it like the stuff we need around the house. I just take care of it myself, basically. That's what I do to kind of satisfy that. And, you know, there are people who still call me out. You know, they're on the short list of people. Because the tools aren't even on the truck.
Yeah.
Short.
Yeah. I don't know. I miss it. I miss it at times, but like I'll get my little dose of it here and there. Like I'll meet a tech somewhere, or maybe I'll go show up on install and show them something. And you know, you spend a few minutes doing something. You're like, okay, well, my job here is done. So y'all have fun with this.
Oh yeah,
I'm out of here. So
it's somewhat of a, you know, maybe you look back with rose-colored glasses on some of the stuff. It's like, man, I want to get back there, and you know, even when you're back there, it's like, I got 7 calls, man. It's 100 degrees outside. I got to go into crawl space. No, you know,
that's crawl spaces. There ain't no such thing down here.
Well, there's plenty here, and most of them are okay. Well, they're not. Half of them are okay, and half of them are not okay. They're not okay at all. So you know, it's just rose-colored glasses. I think you just look back and you remember all the good stuff and kind of forget about the stuff you didn't want to do, or the temperature outside when you had to work, or where you were working, because you can't pick and choose. You can't go back and say, well, no attics. Well, I guess some people do. So I'm not going in the attic or in the crawl space. I'll just do easy jobs that have closet installs. 1 out of 10 jobs. Yeah. Let's see. Craig's saying something interesting down there. Let's see what he's saying. Bring him up.
You see me reading again.
I see that. I see the eyes going down there because I tend to stay like you are here, and the chat's here for me, so it's pretty easy for me to get away with looking at the chat. So Craig says it's an unholy trinity. Satan is God the Father. Antichrist is the Christ false prophet as Holy Spirit. Satan always counterfeits what God has done. But who is the Antichrist? I got some weird theories on that. I'm not totally sure I want to discuss it on the show just yet. That might be a private discussion for me.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is a little bit controversial on what it is. So I'm going to kind of hold that back for right now.
Right.
I don't want to appear stupid either, I guess. So, because, you know, like I said, I mean, there's a lot smarter people out here reading stuff and coming up with stuff, like these Bible Project guys. They know what they're doing. They got like doctorates and stuff. They know, they tell you the Hebrew, they talk in Hebrew. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna trust these guys.
Yeah.
But that's what's going on in my world. How about you?
Just same old man, trying to stay focused on work and doing a good job and being support for the techs, and you know, trying to help with you know, customer service and growing the company, and you know, being company minded, I guess is a way to put it.
Team player.
be a team player. Yeah. And trying to be a positive influence on the guys, not bringing negativity to them.
That's a
So
good thing. I actually read something when I finished up Friday night's thing from Philippians. I think it was Philippians because I'm trying to introduce a little Bible over there in small doses so I don't scatter everybody like turning the light
hmm
on
yeah,
in the room and everybody diverges everywhere. I don't know where I put that. I'd like to read it to you, but I don't remember
yeah,
where I put it. But it was staying positive was part of it, and
hmm
emulating what Paul was doing. Emulate Paul's behavior, which he was emulating Christ, and be Christ-like. It's basically what it was.
yeah,
Stay positive, not yelling at people and doing things like that, which has been tough because
yeah,
I don't know if you knew, everybody out there. Justin and I are both married, so and Paul says some very specific things on marriage. He said you're signing up for a worldly pain. That's exactly what he says. That's like Paul. You're right about that. But he said, you know what? I don't know if you remember reading this, and I don't remember exactly where it's at, but it says if you can't control your passions, which means your sex drive, I guess, it says go ahead and get married. But if you get married, you're signing up for worldly pain. I was like, all right, all right. I should find that somewhere. But it struck a chord with me because all these Catholic priests, they're celibate. So they
yeah,
they don't have that. Of course, there was a big scandal with the Catholic Church about them and the altar boys and stuff. We're not here to revisit that, but that's so they can focus on being a man of God, and I understand that. And it kind
yeah.
of goes right along with what Paul said. And here's another thing talking about Catholics. I was wondering where does the Pope fit in with the Bible? You ever put
Right.
your finger on that one? Where the Pope is?
Yeah.
They said Peter was the first Pope of Rome. That's what he said.
Right.
And I said, I don't, I've never read anything that said anything about a pope or anything like that. So I don't know. Maybe I missed it. So I was just curious if you'd ever thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, I have, but I don't have a good answer for you. Um, I don't know. That's a good one.
Oh, I was curious in
So,
my wanderings,
in your
as you see.
wanderings.
Yeah, because see, I go from subject to subject as it's freestyle here. But
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's been tough for me, especially more recently, as I've tried to stay more actively engaged in the Bible and doing the right thing and living a godly life. Um, I feel like you're a little bit more fortunate than me in one aspect of like you're not working for a company. You stay home, you do the podcast and stuff and all that stuff, so you don't, and you're around your wife and your kids. So I won't say that you don't have a negative impact on you from anywhere from an outside source,
mhm.
because I'm sure you do. But it's really tough for me, like, especially with coworkers that are you know negative, or maybe they don't have the best mouth in the world, you know what I mean, and they don't live a godly life, and it's hard to not get wrapped up in those things, and be negative, or a cuss word slip out, or one of those, something like that. um, and I guess just um, trying to actively pray about that, and try to be the best that you can, and be a positive influence on them. So that's something that I'm struggling with currently, just because it's tough, man. Especially with the world we live in now. I mean, think about how many non-believers that you run into on a daily basis if you're out and
Mhm.
about. You know.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you are in a tougher spot for sure because you're in the belly of the beast, so to speak, there every single day. Because unless there's more active believers at your work, then it probably feels like a one, not one against, because you're not against them, but they might not be very receptive to some of the things that you'd like them to be receptive to. I guess
hmm
I don't know what the best way to put that is, but yeah, that must be pretty tough. And yeah, I don't go through that because here, well, we have infighting here, but it's a different variety, which you're also used to at your house.
Yeah.
That's why you have guns behind you to protect yourself from your wife and children.
You notice how I've been just strategically
I,
adding and
I
taking away.
see it.
It's like a puzzle piece. I'm just gonna keep adding every week and see if everybody picks up on it. Maybe we'll have a quiz on every show. Be like, what did I add to the board this week?
What's the rifle back there? That wasn't there, was it?
Oh no, that's just a little. That's actually so. My mother. I'm trying to think what they call that. Um, man, I can't think of the name of it. So it was at a church. Maybe they call it a pre hunt or something like that. It's like an event that you have at the church prior to hunting season. So it's kind of
I've never
everybody
heard
gets.
of that.
I know it's crazy. Maybe it's a South Georgia thing. I don't know. And
Georgia. It's Georgia.
maybe that's the wrong terminology for it. I don't know, but um, you meet at the church. Everybody eats, and you have some scripture and stuff like that, and then well, let me back up. So everybody, it's like $10 a plate or whatever. So everybody shows up at the church. They pay $10 a plate for their food, and that buys you, that gives you so many tickets, right? So then you talk about some scripture and some different stuff, and then they start raffling off prizes, and all kinds of different people have donated. It might be guns, it might be hunting blinds, it might be tree climbers, it might be compound bows. It could be anything. Most of the time, it's related to hunting or fishing. So several years ago, I won't say several years ago. We're going to say 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. We were at one, and my mom won that Marlin 22 long rifle back there, and she put it up. She's had it put up in a box, untouched, for 7 years. She put it up for my son at the time. Well, I don't know who talked to her about it or whatever, but somebody convinced her to let me bring it home, open up the box and clean it and stuff, because you don't want surface rust and pitting and all kinds of different stuff to happen when it's just been sitting in a box for years and years. So Anna went and picked it up the other day and brought it home, and I took it out of the box, cleaned it all up, and it did have some surface rust and stuff starting to form on it, so I had to clean it up real good, and I just put it up there on the board, and I hadn't put it up yet.
Oh, nice.
So
22.
Yep, Marlin 22.
Age to perfection.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with that. The old Marlin 22.
I had a nice 22 that was passed down to me from my great grandfather, and it was toasted in the fire. I was so upset. Well, it's still around, but it looks pretty rough. It's like it got buried in the yard for about 20 years, is what it looks like for some reason. I guess I don't know what it is. Something about fire, and the fire department spraying stuff with water makes stuff age very quickly.
Yeah.
It looks rough.
And I hate that for you, because that's I couldn't imagine, especially you went through it twice. Family heirlooms, guns, you name it. Kids' pictures from when they were babies and all that stuff. That's got to be tough. I don't.
Well,
I don't envy you whatsoever.
No, it's definitely no good. Bad experience to go through. I think there's several like things that were precious to me personally. I mean, in the first fire, I had purchased a guitar when I was 16, when I first started working doing HVAC in the summertime, and that guitar was destroyed. And I was visibly upset whenever I found that in the fire. So that was at least talking about me. And then both the guns, my classic guns, I had a 410, a Harrison Richardson 410 from like 1925. That was my father's, and then given to me. And then that 22, which was my great grandfather's. And it was, they're here, but they're destroyed. I mean, no one's going to be ever shoot these guns again. I could probably dress them up a little bit and like use them as wall art or something, which is what I'll probably do. And at least they can live on in that respect. But I will say this, thank goodness, and I'll never say this about anything else, thank goodness for social media that a lot of pictures live on social media posts.
Yeah.
So we could get them back. So that was nice.
That's true.
But
yeah, I think that's actually one of the reasons why my wife hangs on to Facebook, because she's got thousands of pictures on there from the kids being babies and everything else, which I have recently put them all in a folder for, I think, on this desktop. So Maybe she'll delete Facebook. Who knows?
Believe it or not, I had a laptop before the first fire, which was in 2015, January of 2015. So that was 6 years ago plus. I still had that laptop. It was sitting on my desk. The lights in the top of the room were melted off. I mean, they
Oh
melted
wow.
and they were kind of hanging down because they're plastic. They're warped, hanging down and stuff. That laptop was on my desk where I worked in this little office area of this house. It is still around and I can still fire it up and it'll turn on.
Oh wow.
So I was like, well, Samsung, way to go. Do better with your washer dryers, but good job.
Oh wait.
Never get a high efficiency washer dryer again. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I don't trust those things as far as I could chuck one in the yard. I don't.
That bad, huh?
It just a little, little songs they play when the clothes are dry,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden something won't work. Error code 417 Delta. Nah.
Dude, I think every appliance in our house plays some type of song when it's done. The washer, the dryer, the dishwasher, and then the refrigerator, it'll beep for random different things or whatever. But yeah, it's super annoying.
I'd rather have older stuff like a regular dryer and washer. There's a chance that if it breaks, I can fix it. I mean, it's
Mhm.
reasonable within reason. I'm not a appliance repair man, but I'm close. Fix air conditioner.
I would like to see an appliance repairman come in and work on my refrigerator. It is
Why?
because it is an inverter, and it's got about 3 different boards on it in the back, and yeah, it's pretty complicated. So I would love to see that, because most of the time when you picture an appliance repairman, you think of some old school guy or whatever, and basic hand tools and this and that. Like, I would just love to see look at one space when I call somebody up, say, "Yeah, come work on my refrigerator." They walk in and go, I don't know anything about that."
I couldn't imagine. It's just like some of the stuff that we would have worked on back in HVAC. If I would have run into it, the real high end stuff, I would have been like, you might have to call somebody else, or I need to take a class or something before I come in
Mhm.
here and work on this stuff because it makes me uncomfortable because it's like every single thing is so proprietary. Unless you take some kind of class, you got to call somebody in Bangladesh to find out what the fault code means or whatever. It just, I don't know. It
Yeah.
always weighed on me. It made me nervous to go in on those.
Yeah, I think we've established that less is more for me anyway.
I believed you. You said you had an inverter refrigerator, and I was like, "What? Who is this guy? Did you
That
purchase that?"
that wasn't my doing. That was my wife's doing,
Oh, okay, all right.
and I hate it because it's still 134A refrigerant,
Oh
and
man, okay.
it actually leaks refrigerant. It started leaking like a year and a half after we got it. So it currently has a piercing valve on it, and
Oh dear,
yeah, I've occasionally had to gas it up.
you gas and go your inverter refrigerator.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
should be a meme or something.
big fancy refrigerator with a valve on the back of it. It has to be gassed up randomly. Yeah.
That is it's just perfect. My refrigerator is it's like the basic. It's new, obviously, because the house is new, but it's just basic. It's so basic that when it comes on, you can hear the compressor in the living room.
Yeah,
It's
but
like,
see, those are that's easy to keep going though, because
yeah,
if
I
if
like
it
it.
if it starts leaking refrigerant, you can put a valve in it and gas it back up. If the compressor don't start, you can add a 3-in-1 and probably get the compressor going again.
We'll get it
So
going. We'll give it
mine,
all the torque it ever could
if it
desire.
throws an error code, it's like, well, there's it's probably one of 100 things. So sensors and boards and all that crap.
I do not want to be part of that at all. That's
Yeah, I don't know
I,
where we got to talking on refrigerators, but
I don't know. I guess I don't know. You mentioned an inverter. It took me aback that you would even own an inverter. I was like, man, what the world?
I don't
Gonna
want
put
it.
a mini split in your room? Good grief!
No, I'm not. I'm
I,
not. I'll put a window shaker in here.
maybe your wife will. she'll hire a guy to come in there. Yeah, we need about 25 seers.
No, no. I tell, and I shouldn't be that way, because the industry's changing, and here we are talking about heat and air on men with issues. But anyhow, I'm gonna
We'll
go
we'll
down
keep
this.
it short. You bring us
Yeah,
back.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole for a minute. I have to catch myself because the industry's changing, and a lot of people are going to mini splits and inverter systems and this and that. And I'm just super old school in the way that I think of, like, man, I don't want that junk. I don't want a mini split, but I have guys that I need to encourage to be willing to work on stuff like that, and enjoy working on stuff like that because they're going to have to. Um, so I have to really catch myself because somebody will start talking about a mini split or something. And man, that big piece of crap, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, well, I need to catch myself. No, yeah, no, those are great. Those are super efficient. Yeah, I would definitely recommend those.
Well, you got to get with the times, man. You got to get with the
Yeah.
times. Hey,
My idea of a mini split is for a garage or something like that on an exterior wall where the copper can go straight out the exterior wall, the drain can go straight out the exterior wall, straight down to a condenser. These
hey,
people that do their whole house in mini splits with like an 8-head mini split crap, I'm like, nah, you can have that, bud.
yeah, no,
Care nothing
no,
about it.
you can keep that. Here's your segue back. I got it right
Okay,
here.
give it to
All
me.
right. I was watching one of these videos that go over Genesis, and I was reading Genesis at the same time. But the video I watched before I really got into where it was talking about. We're talking about technology. I thought this was funny. They come along and they start talking about building the Tower of Babel, and they want to build a tower up to the heavens. And they're doing it. And I watched this video, and that's what I thought was so funny, just the way they termed it. And they were using the latest technology, the brick.
The brick.
The brick. Like you go to the Apple store and it's like a brick. Brick one. This is the first generation brick right here. And it was funny because they mentioned that as the latest technology, and I watched another one of their videos and it talked about the latest technology was the brick, and it was just hilarious because at one point that was the latest technology.
Yep.
Hey, we're gonna use tools, iron.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like, oh, these are cool, but it's funny, because everybody was trying to. It's a lot like nowadays, actually, when you think about it, especially like I was talking about social media. All these people were trying to build their way up to God because they thought they said they're going to make a name for themselves. It's going to be
Mhm.
about them. And as soon as they thought it was about them, and God says, well, okay, let's check this out. Boom, now you scattered and don't speak the same language. How's that?
Yep.
The snap of the fingers or however he did it. But it's just,
Yep.
it goes to show you, I mean, the most power you can ever accumulate is going to be small compared to God's power. So, I mean, you can try to
Yeah.
cut a contest there, but it ain't gonna work out for you.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to what we've talked about in the past too, is mankind. I think that's probably the problem with some of the world or whatever, and people not wanting to. People don't want to give credit to God or to a higher being because uh, then that means that they're not equal to said God. You know what I mean? Like that
Mm-hmm.
they can't stand it that there's something bigger than them. They want to be the center of attention.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
They'll have to serve somebody then. And nobody wants to
right.
serve anybody. They want to be their
Right.
own person
Hmm.
and call their own shots and shouldn't have to serve. And I like that. Yes, Steve. I was going to say that. I opened it up so I could find the chapter 11, Genesis,
Yep.
Tower of Babel. Thank you, Steve. But yeah, no one wants to do that anymore. I think once you accept that if you have like a servant's attitude in life, all this
Hmm.
stuff becomes easier. I mean, dealing with
Yep.
like the people at work will probably be easier, and then dealing with your family is easier because I think you abandon your pride and you start
Hmm.
to realize that I can be wrong. I can be wrong about stuff.
Once you cope with that, it's not about you, and that you're just a servant for something much bigger than yourself. Then it becomes easier. You're right. I completely agree with that.
I'm still working on that one too. Not really with the higher power, but with in my own house here. Just making sure that I'm not thinking selfishly about things because I do that.
Yeah. And you're gonna fall short. I fall short.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Fell short today.
it's going to happen. But the important thing is that you recognize that and you learn from it and you move on.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right because I think there's a time period. And I can speak for myself, and I'm sure pretty much anyone listening to this. that I would act in a certain way and not know the difference between that way being wrong or right. I would think it's right. And I think and right would be whatever's beneficial for myself. That would have been right.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to come to grips with that. And it's funny because I was watching one of these videos because I watched several of them. I think it was in the time of Judges, the book of Judges, where it says at that time in Israel, everybody was doing what is right or wrong in their own eyes because it was
Hmm.
really going downhill. And that's really what I think it's like it is now. If you don't have a set of morality given to you by the Almighty, you have to come up with your own set of morality. And some parts of it might mirror the Almighty's, but in the end, it's based on a selfish need. So it's going to be skewed toward whatever you want or need. I
You
think.
think that's part of the problem with people coming to God today is that they don't want to accept that they're wrong in something and have to repent to somebody, and in other words, openly admit that they're wrong or that they've been living wrong this whole time, and they just can't find them. They can't work themselves up to do that.
Hmm.
Um,
I think you're right. I think because you have to swallow your pride, and you have to. It's almost like you have to become weak. You have to admit that you're weak in the grand
mhm.
scheme of things. That's really tough. I think it's really tough for people to do. I think it's really tough for me to do because you always want to appear like you're strong or in charge or something, and really you're not.
You have to admit that you're not deserving too.
Yeah,
That you ultimately you're sinful and you're not deserving of anything. Um, but yet all you have to do is admit those things and accept Jesus as your savior, and admit all your faults, and you can go to heaven. You can go somewhere that is perfect. And I think it's just getting over that hump of accepting that you're sinful, you're prideful, and you're wrong. You get what I'm saying? Like, if you can get over that hump, um, I feel like it's all downhill from there, or
yeah.
should be. It should be downhill from there.
I think it. I think it is if it's coming from the right area, depending on depending on why it is you're coming to that conclusion. I think it is in general that you'll be better off, at least more open to working with other people as far as your relationships and things like that. Because I think God wants you to work on your relationships and treat, like I said, Christ in the head of house, the man. I said that out loud. That's right. That's what it's supposed to be. It's the man. Okay, everybody is the man, which I think this crowd probably would agree. And the man's supposed to do the same thing with his wife, have that same affection that Christ has for the church. The man should have it for his wife.
Hmm.
And while you're saying that stuff, I'm thinking to myself, I said, reading the Old Testament, I mean, we really have, it's almost like we've been given just enough rope with sin. If you stray from God, that you're going to end up hanging yourself. And here's what I mean by that. If you're in the
Hmm.
Old Testament, you might get judgment anytime. I mean, because you're sitting there and, Abraham, I was reading this about Abraham, and then God shows up with these three guys. I guess some of them are angels, or all three of them are angels, and they're on the way to Sodom. And it's like, what's going on, man? They said, we're going to destroy Sodom. That's where we're heading. And of course, Abraham's like, okay, don't destroy Sodom. There might be 50 good people there. And he does this whole thing about 50, 40, 35, because
Hmm.
Lot's in Sodom. And that's his nephew. And God goes to Sodom, and then Lot's in his house, and these dudes are outside, and they want the guys to come out so they can have sex with them. And it's like, good grief. And I figured that out because it says know them in a way, and know equals to have sex with them, because it mentions Lot's daughters in the same sentence, talking about her knowing them instead. So you kind
Hmm.
of put it together. And then God
Right.
burns this whole city. It says rains down fire and sulfur on the city. That's not happening now. I mean, Las Vegas isn't going to get sulfur rained on it because this is a different era. It's a different covenant with Jesus Christ. So you have to, if you're going to just ignore God, you're going to end up seeing him later. So you don't get that instant punishment, which is so different from reading like
Mhm.
Old to New Testament, because it's almost like he's giving you all the time in the world. Figure this out.
Yep.
Figure it out before you die.
Yep.
It's wild.
Yeah, and again, it turns into faith, right? If God were still actively doing those things today, like the example you give of burning down Las Vegas, then everybody would see that, right? And then they would know there's a God, and there would be no need for faith.
That's right.
So,
That's right. And somebody would still not believe, because these people, a lot of them didn't
that's
believe
true.
still. Moses led people and parted a sea, and some of them still didn't believe later.
What do you think they come up with, that a meteorite hit Las Vegas, and that's what it was? It was
Yeah.
They got a scientific reason for it.
CNBC says meteorite hit instead.
That's right.
Yeah. Christians like, you don't think that was God? It's like, no, we're pretty sure it's a meteorite. We're pretty sure. Because at NBC there is no God. I don't want to say everybody at NBC, but I'm just kidding.
I will say there's probably a lot of truth in that, because look at all the things that we have today that people don't want to give God credit for. That
everything.
that make everything. I mean, we've gotten so far fetched that we're expected to believe that everything that an explosion happened from nothing, and now everything works in perfect order.
Yeah,
down to earwax in your ear, preventing water from damaging your ear. That's an accident. That's an accident.
That's interesting. There was a quote that I read. It was from Charles Darwin. Darwin's evolutionist. He's where it all started. And it was saying that even he would admit that the construction of the human eye is beyond the thought of evolution could ever have done it. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like saying evolution's definitely for real, but it couldn't have done this. So, okay.
Yeah, well, because that's one of the things, like, and I don't know if this is the right terminology to use, but the way I heard it explained, or how I interpreted it, was, what science shows people is that from an accident, something out of control, from an accident comes chaos. That there's no order to an accident. So, but yet we're supposed to believe that from an accident we have now perfect order. So it goes against the laws of science, but yet people believe it.
Yeah. And not only does all these dirt clods stick together, they come to life.
Yeah.
How's that work? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I mean, I was like, that was that thing. Robertson's, this Department of Saltwater, it turns into like a lobster, then a lion, then a man. And oh man, science. It's not for everybody.
Yeah. I didn't mean to go down that rabbit hole with evolution and Big Bang and all that, but
man, that cat was loud.
That cat is loud.
Oh my god. Man, that was
mad. And I locked her in here. She's mad. Let that cat out. She's freaking out.
Who let the cats out? That song never hit the charts.
Never.
No, didn't make it. Didn't have the same ring to it, did it?
Anyhow, read the devotional and let's get at it.
I'll have it on the screen. Believe it or not, as soon as our show got over last week, I put that devotional up, because today I was like, oh man, I got to get I got it already. All right. I just want to say Craig's out there giving us a lot of great comments in the chat. Very awesome, Craig. Very awesome. Thank you. I'm going to read this one here. Let me see. Craig says the atheist trinity time, circumstance, and chance. Given enough time under the right circumstance and by chance, you'll get all this diversity of life. Well, I think our story is even more believable than that one, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
At least our story goes back over 2,000 years, because I know they had an Old Testament that was out. I don't know what they called it at the time, but it was like 250 BC. It was written. From what I read, that's like almost 2,300 years. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, to span the test of time. Are you kidding me?
I'm sorry, I got off track. I looked at Joe's comment down there.
I can see it.
I'm gonna blow up some meat in their parts and see if I can get it.
Yeah, they recongeal into the perfect system.
Yeah, and for you non-heat and air people out there listening, he's basically saying you take a bunch of scrap metal and throw it in a pile in the yard, and and blow it up, and it forms into a perfectly working Mercedes Benz or something.
But so you got to break it down. You got to say I blew up my bike and it became a Ducati or something like that, or became an
That's right.
Indian motorcycle.
That's right.
All right, here's a devotional. Here we go. Let me see. Oh,
Go
right
for it.
before. Here's our email. If you want to shoot us an email, menwithissuespodcast@gmail.com. Justin was able to get through all the security hurdles that were required to get into the email. It's funny. I kept getting a security code. At the first time, I was like, what is this? Then he calls me. It's like,
I knew
need
it too.
the code.
I didn't send you a text at first. I just tried to, and it said it's in a code. And I was sitting there at the computer, and I thought he's going to decline that because he's not going to know where that come from. And like 30 seconds later, it popped up a message that you had declined it, and I'm like, yep, I might have to text him and let him know that it's me.
Yeah, I should have figured it out. So he's just wanting to get on the email, but I didn't. I was sitting there because I get, if someone in my house tries to log on to my account or something, or on my computer or on one of their computers, I said, nope, nope. If I would have thought about it a little bit better, I would have got it. All right. Again, this is the devotional that we're reading out of. It is Stand Strong, 365 devotions for men, by men, our daily bread. All right. So here we go. Let me give this a shot. I call this reading. Okay. Let's see what happens. Breath out, meditation. Let's do it. Eye level to a bulldog. Maybe I'll just read really slow. Isaiah 42, verses 1 through 7. I, the Lord, have called you in righteousness, to open eyes that are blind, to free captives from prison, and to release from the dungeon of those who sit in darkness. My son and his wife, this is the story here. For those of you listening, this is the story part that goes with the verse. My son and his wife have a 120-pound American bulldog with a powerful body and a fearsome face. My kids are barely 120 pounds. That's wild. Yet until we became friends, Buddy, that's a great name, Buddy, wasn't sure he could trust me. As long as I was on my feet, he'd keep his distance. But if I'd get down on the ground, Buddy's mood would change. Sensing I was no longer a threat, he'd playfully come running like a freight train, pounce on me, and want me to scratch his muscular neck. Maybe what Buddy needed from me is a glimmer of what God gave us by coming down to our level and living among us in the person of Christ. From the day our first parents sinned and hid from the Lord's presence in the Garden of Eden, our tendency has been to be afraid of coming to a high and holy God on his terms. And that's from John chapter 3, verse 20. So as Isaiah predicted, God showed how low he was willing to go to bring himself to us, or bring us to himself. By adopting the form of a lowly servant, our Creator lived and died to disarm our wrongs. How can we still be afraid to trust him? Very nice. Very nice. A good story, too.
That's
I
good
like
stuff.
that one. It's a good devotional, man. It's a good devotional. Yep. Good choice.
Yeah, I like the story that goes along with these just because it kind of puts it into context, right? It kind of it brings it all together.
Makes you understand.
Yeah.
Very nice. So I guess I read, and now you say goodbye to everybody. I'll go ahead and goodbye, everybody. Go ahead, man.
We appreciate you guys sticking in there with us. I know we were late, and I was extremely late. Just know that on my end, it was worth it. Because in person, reading scripture, digging into the Bible, trying to further yourself in faith, that's super important to me. It's important to Zach. So I appreciate you guys hanging in there and waiting on us. Again, sorry I was late. Try not to make it a habit. Any questions, any ideas, anything like that, be sure to send us an email, menwithissuespodcast@gmail.com. Till next week, y'all have a good one.